Our last presentation is Brian Garrett Schur. He works at Freedom of Creation, which is, as we just heard, the company that helped Pauline develop this incredible 3D printed shoe. And he's brought with him today a printer and many different artifacts, which designs, products which have been made with 3D printers, not this one per se, as I understand, but he's going to tell us a little bit more about the process of designing and the more technical side, perhaps.
Yep. So at Freedom of Creation, we're one of the first pioneering companies to go from design to 3D printing. And so everything we make on a computer, we draw it in a 3D program, and then we send it to the printer, something like this. And it starts actually making this 3D file into an object. And the way this happens is, imagine if you have a 3D file, you can slice it in very thin layers, and then you can just take a thing and go extrude layer by layer by layer until you have your final object. And that's basically what you're seeing here. We're making the V2 logo, and it's just building up layer by layer by layer until finally it's going to make this thing.
So I've seen some things on your website that say gold. And what are other kinds of materials that are being experimented with in 3D printing? Because I think the perception is that it's a rapid manufacturing technique which doesn't really translate into precious metals or precious materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the better question to ask is which materials can't you 3D print? Because these days you can print paper, you can print plastics, you can print metals, rubbers, ceramics, gold, silver, pretty much everything. But each material and each technology has its limitations and its different strengths. So metal is of course small sizes, and plastics is bigger sizes. So that's one of the main differences.
Can you take us through some of the objects that you've brought here today?
So one of the first designs Janne made is this dress, and it's made up of a lot of rings, and that's what we call textile. This is a design from 2005, so it's already like 6 years old. And believe it or not, this dress comes out of the printer in one piece. So it's modeled on a computer, and all the rings you see are modeled in such a way that they don't actually touch each other in 3D space. So if you print this thing, then it comes out as one piece, and it's ready to wear. And what's always quite striking to me is that we took this design back in 2005 to the big fashion brands, and we presented them, and we told them, like, we can make you a dress that will blow your mind, something that you completely can't imagine. We can print you a zipper, we can print you buttons, we can print a complete dress. And the only thing they ask is, okay, what's the square meter price? And so they completely didn't got the whole clue of 3D printing. So that's one of the first things. And then in similar textile field, we have the punch bag, which is also textile based, but it has a different pattern, which makes it, on one hand more interesting, but also a bit more flexible. And the funny thing about this design is that, apart from that it's in a MoMA, is that you can't take it on a plane, because it's officially seen as a weapon, because it has a knuckle duster as a grip. So someone bought the design someday and wanted to take it on a plane, and it was stopped by customs. So that's interesting. This is something else. This is 2005, and it took us 6 more years to make it into a glove. And the reason is that the technology had to be more refined, but especially making the 3D model for this that's really quite complicated, and that's what took us like 6 more years and 10 minutes to figure out how to arrange the geometry in such a way that it will actually fit like a glove and not melt together like one big lump of plastic.
I see that each one has a different sort of ring shape or ring combination. So how do you work with the sort of textile design in
I
that
think
sense?
so far we have roughly 10 different textile patterns. And for example, this is called the Mobius, and then we have the, we call it the 4-in-1. So that's 4 rings who go into 1 ring, and the 3-in-1. And so we have 10 different designs of textiles, and they all have their strengths. So some are flexible, some are really thin, some are really, look nice, and so that's the differences.
Are these freedom of creation designs, or how?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And you've also created shoes with Andrea Chavez.
Yeah.
And so can you tell us a little bit about those? Because I think they're even more challenging to wear.
Yes. So Andrea Chavez, a Brazilian shoe designer, she approached us, I think, about a year ago. And she already had this design, but she had no clue of how to make it, because it's quite a challenging form, and it cannot be made in traditional ways. So we helped her with making the 3D file and producing the nylon shoe. And it's actually, this shoe is being sold, and she did it quite cleverly, because she made half a traditional shoe, which goes inside, and half like state-of-the-art 3D printed shoe. So it's sort of a morph between new and old techniques. So on the inside there's leather, so you can actually wear it. And
What's the biggest challenge when you're working with designers?
Especially when we start to work with new designers, and especially designers who are a little bit older, the traditional designers who still think in molds, and we completely don't have those limitations. So we first have to sort of educate them and tell them, like, okay, you can make whatever you want, just let all the limitations go, and then we create whatever they need. And sometimes it's a museum piece, and the other time it's a campaign, for example, or a giveaway, or a ring. Can be anything.
And I was surprised. I think Joris went to your office, and so did I, and we expected it to be like a big factory with a bunch of machines. Where are the machines, and why are they not in your office?
The machines are everywhere. We don't own them, because it wouldn't make sense to own machines in this day, because the technology is changing so fast, and that if we would own the machines, we would have to fill them up constantly, and we would become a production company. And we want to be a design company. So we have connections with all the production facilities all around the world. And if we need to make something, we go either to Germany, or we go to England, or to the US, depending on which technique, which material, which finish, etc., etc.
And how much does that lab that you go to get these things printed in, how much does that inform what you're able to do? Is there, is the role of the technician or the environment in which things are being produced, does that also dictate the kinds of things that you can make, or the vision that you might have of this technology? For example, are you able to experiment in a radical way with the printers?
Yeah, of course. We work with all these engineers and the technicians, and they only think about, we have to make the finish on this product perfect, you know? You have to make the layer thickness thinner and thinner and thinner until you don't see the layers anymore. But what they don't think about is that maybe the layers can be part of the design, or maybe it's just part of the look and feel of 3D printed products. And what we do is we tell them, like, what we want is a cheap material, something that we can produce fast. And then they go like, okay, well, we'll look into that. Or sometimes they come with a new material, or a new finish, or a new way of printing, and then they ask us for input, you know, like, what can we make, or what should we do with this? And so it's, that's really interesting to be on the forefront of 3D printing.
But how do you situate yourself, for example, with the work of Emily and Carol, which is very experimental material? How can you see this kind of sort of experimental approach to materiality translating into some of the things that freedom of creation makes? Can we see a lard dress? Can we see a flesh dress? Can we imagine a kind of bio couture that will also be 3D printed? As we saw, one of the researchers with Carol, Laura, was experimenting with sort of traditional practices in 3D
Yeah.
printing.
Yeah, there's a couple things I see happening in the future, and that's the combinations of materials, be it 3D printing and other kinds of 3D printing, so metal and nylon and metal and rubbers. That's something that's obviously going to happen. But it could also be a combination of 3D printing, indeed, with fabrics and traditional ways of making fashion. So, yeah.
Or embedding circuits, or network technology, or, I mean, I think there's lots and lots of potential there.
Of course.
So, any questions from our audience to probe to Brian and the freedom of creation works that we have? Yeah.
It's a fascinating technology. I was just wondering about the energy consumption in the printing process. If you compare it to other traditional methods like injection molding, is it better? Or
I wish I could say yes, but I think at this moment, because if you compare 3D printing to injection molding, it's still in a very early phase. There's only 30 or 50,000 3D printers in the world, which is very little in comparison to injection molding. But it has the potential to be much more sustainable and energy efficient, and that's maybe not only in the energy consumption, but mainly in the fact that you can get rid of transportation, because you just send the digital file instead of having to ship stuff from China to Europe. So that's probably where the biggest energy save is going to be.
Hi, Brian. I was wondering, what software do you use to design the 3D prints?
You can use any software, as long as it's 3D. So from SketchUp to 3D Max, Rhino, SolidWorks. Basically it all works, but there's always some fixing involved. So if you're a good modeler, then you can use any software. But if you're a poor modeler, then we have a lot of fixing to do. And we'll also get it to print, of course.
Thank you.
So we have a special launch of something which Brian worked on, and some of you are in on it. But Brian actually designed this V2 club ring, which we are launching this evening, and you can purchase from Barbara. Lovely Barbara. We'll be passing them around. And maybe you can, before we sort of launch them out into the world, just tell us a little bit about the process of making this ring.
Yeah, so you asked me to make a cool ring, and the only criterion was to have the V2 logo. So what I did is I extruded the V and the 2 as into 3D space, and then I connected the V and the 2 together and sort of morphed it into a ring shape. So actually it goes from the V and then all the way back into the 2, and it's like one continuous shape. So that's it.
I think it's really cool. So they're €5. You can pick them up from Barbara. I think it's been a fabulous evening. I hope you feel the same and are inspired by some of the works and projects that have been presented. And I have many people to thank for this evening, first of which are the presenters for coming through and coming in with all kinds of fantastic work from all over the world and being so very articulate. Not to forget my sort of conceptual collaborators, Michelle and Pim, with whom I concocted this evening, so I can't take sole responsibility for it, and this event's organizational rock, Ivana, wherever you are, who worked very hard, all the PR people, Joris and Pinar, and the technical team who put this together, Wilco, Richard, Menault, and Rubens, thanks so much. This evening has been live webcast. Alessandra's been working on that, and it's been broadcasted also on the Fashioning Technology website, so thanks for doing that. The volunteers, thank you. Alex, thanks for letting me disturb your lab for a few months. It was pretty fun. To end the evening, Alex Falk has actually designed we asked him to make a special drink for us, which would be on theme. And so it's clothing without cloth, and we decided to go drink without drink. So essentially, it's a drink that can't be drunk. You have to eat it. Why not? Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely evening.